Hello, YouTube. Logan LDG here. Today, a couple hours ago, Riot streamed the group draws for Worlds, both play-in and the main stage. So I figured I'd do a quick little reaction, analysis, prediction type piece on this, looking at the draws. I've been looking at it for about 30 minutes now, so I've been thinking about it, and now I'm ready to give you my thoughts on these draws. All right, first off, we're going to start with the play-ins. Because play-ins feeds into main stage, it's very important to look at who's going to come out of here because it impacts all the main groups. So first, the format for play-ins, in case you don't know, they're split into two groups, Group A and Group B. What happens is if you place first in your group, you are automatically seeded into the main stage. You get out right away. Second place, you sit there and chill and wait for your best of five. You have to win one best of five if you're second to make it to the main stage. Fifth place is automatically eliminated. You're out of Worlds. You're just done. Your tournament's over. But third and fourth in each group will play each other in a best of five. The winner of the third, fourth place match will play the second place team from the other group. Now, this confuses people a lot. I'm not quite sure why, but a lot of people get confused on the play-ins format. So, just to clarify, say these were hypothetically how the groups did turn out. Hanwha first, Infinity second, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Hanwha Life and Beyond would automatically seed to main stage. LNG and Peace would play a best of five, the winner of which would play Cloud9 for the second spot. And then, in this group, Detonation Focus Me and Galatasaray Esports, the Turkish team, would play a best of five, and the winner would play Infinity for that second spot. So overall, 4 teams will come out of play-ins into main draw, and that is how they're decided. If you place third or fourth, you have to win 2 best of fives. If you place second, you only have to win 1, and if you're first, you don't have to win any. You're automatically through. 5th place out. That's how the format works for play-ins. Now, looking at these play-in groups, Group A and Group B, my first impressions on winners and losers of this group draw, who got screwed and who got helped out, who got lucky. If you are a play-in team in Group A, you got lucky. Play-in team in Group A, you're feeling very good. You got basically your dream group. If you are Hanwha Life, maybe in Group A, you're a little unlucky. You're not looking forward to this group stage, in my opinion. Group B, if you're Beyond or C9, you're probably not super happy. You're probably just not super happy to be a Group B team. If you're placed in Group B, you kind of got screwed. If the wildcard teams in Group A got lucky, and I think LNG is probably feeling pretty good about this. I don't think anybody in Group B is feeling great about what happened, and I don't think Hanwha Life is feeling great about what happened. So 4 teams probably happy, and then 6 teams probably a bit upset. Here's why I think that. I think that all of the strongest wildcard teams got seeded into Group B. I think UOL, GS, DFM, these are probably just the 3 strongest wildcard teams overall. I think these are, if you look at my ranking, I'm pretty sure these are just the 3 strongest teams. These are the 3 weakest ones from my World's Power ranking video, which I'll have linked in a corner somewhere around here. Maybe that way, I don't know. But anyway, so I think all of the strongest wildcard developing regions got put in Group B. And I also think the main seeds of Beyond and C9 are weaker than Hanwha Life and LNG. So if you're Beyond or C9, you're feeling more vulnerable because you're in a group with all of the strongest play-in teams. Now, I think here's why that's important. It's because of the way the format is that I explained, right? Because if you are one of these teams, if you're Infinity, Peace, or Red, all you have to do is place third or fourth in your group. Just do not get last. And then you play a best of 5 versus one of these guys who you're probably feeling pretty good against because these are all the weaker teams. So you have an easy best of 5, easy, relatively speaking. Then you end up going against the second place of Group B, which is likely going to be C9 or Beyond. So if you're looking at the teams you could have faced versus where it could have been LNG or Hanwha, you're probably feeling pretty good if your ticket to the world's main stage is a best of 5 versus beyond. So the path to get to main stage for these 3 wildcard teams is much easier than it is for these 3 wildcard teams. Because conversely, if you are UOL, GS, DFM, not only is it going to be harder for you to win games because you're in an overall group where everybody else is closer. So you need to not get 5th. You need to get at least 3rd or 4th. But then even if you do that, you're going to have a tough best of 5. Any of these teams in a best of 5 are going to be relatively close to each other. So you're going to have a tough best of 5. And then if you win that tough best of 5, you then probably likely get to go against Hanwha Life Esports, which has Chovy and Deft. So, congratulations. You're out of the frying pan and into the fire, so to speak. If I were to guess my prediction right now for how these groups would shake out, I would say LNG is probably the best team in Group A. I really think LNG is going to be significantly better than Hanwha Life. I think that these teams matched up directly against each other, it really favors LNG. If you look at where LNG is strongest on the map, it's their top jungle. It's Ale and Tarzan. And you look at where HLE has been exploited, and it's Morgan and Willer. So this isn't looking great. I really think that the difference between LNG's top and jungle and Ale and Tarzan to Morgan and Willer, I think that gap is bigger than the gap between like Chovy and Icon or Deft and Light. So I think the top and jungle diff is going to be more important than the carry diff for HLE. So I think LNG is going to take first in this group and get directly seeded into main stage, in my opinion. Then I would still be very, very shocked. It would probably be the biggest upset of Worlds if HLE couldn't get at least top 2 in this group. Because like I said, these are probably the 3 weakest teams in some order that are currently at the World Championship. So HLE second is pretty safe to write in for me. And then between these 3 teams, I honestly cannot tell you who's going to be the one that gets eliminated. It's just tough. Infinity has Cody, who is basically Latin America Faker in the mid lane. So going to be looking for big carry performances from him. Peace has Vivisachi as their top laner because their top laner, Api, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. He can't make it. He can't get a visa. So they got Vivisachi to come in and replace. So who knows how that team is going to look now with a sub top laner. And I've also heard that another player on their roster may also have trouble making it. So that's up in the air. Who even knows if they're going to be playing with their full team? And then Red Canids, I just don't know much about this team. Brazil has kind of underperformed at the past couple tournaments relative to their expectations. But this is like their dream group. All 3 of these teams, Infinity, Peace, Red, they're looking at this like, wow, we got super lucky. This is going to be great. If I had to guess, I'd say Red Canids will be the team that'll drop out. Maybe Peace and Infinity are 3rd, 4th. But that is honestly kind of a shot in the dark. I'm throwing a dart at a wall with my eyes closed. It's really a toss-up. So this is going to be a very interesting group to watch how the bottom 3 shake out, in my opinion. Looking over at Group B, I think, in my opinion, C9 does have the edge over Beyond Gaming. I would say C9 probably takes first in this group and gets a direct seed to main stage. And then I do think Beyond Gaming has a very strong chance of coming in second. But I think every single one of these teams has that potential. I think every team in this group could win. They have the talent. We saw like at MSI, Dead Nation Focus Me. They can beat teams like Cloud9. They've shown they have that potential for sure. They played close games with Damwon Kia. So this group is... Nobody in this group is feeling good. All of them are thinking like, all right, we've got to... You've got to show up. You've got to perform. It's best of 1. It's a best of 1 round robin, So anything can happen in best of 1. Group B is going to be explosive. This will be huge. it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility for Cloud9 to finish like third in this group. But like I said, whoever finishes third in this group is where it gets tough. If you're one of these teams and you can get a top 2 seed, you're feeling great because you're facing one of the weaker. If you're 1 seed, obviously you're already through, and if you're the 2nd seed, then you get to face one of the weaker wildcard teams for your best of 5 to main stage. So top 2 in this group is where you really need to get, and you're feeling good. Because as soon as you get to 3rd, 4th, sure, you've got a tough best of 5, but then you've probably got to go against Chovy in your next best of 5, which is never a situation you want to put yourself in. You don't want Chovy to be the gatekeeper between you and World's main stage. So this group's going to be a bloodbath, for sure. Group B is going to be insane. If I had to guess, I would say it probably goes Cloud9, number 1, Beyond Gaming, number 2. I could see Detonation Focus Me 3rd, and then it's kind of maybe up in the air. I think Detonation Focus Me has the potential, probably the best chance out of these 3 wildcard teams. I'd say Detonation Focus Me has the best chance to get 2nd, like maybe upset a Beyond or Cloud9, get 2nd, and then have a better chance of making it to the main stage. So that's kind of how I see the play-in groups right now. Group A, it's kind of, everybody's feeling pretty good about it except for maybe Hanwha. But Group B, everybody's going to be sweating, nervous on the edge of their seat. This is the group of death, for sure. This is a group of death for play-ins. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this one shakes out. And I'm definitely going to be paying attention to the Group B matches to get a sense of how strong these teams are coming in. Next, we probably just go to main stage. I didn't really give my prediction, I guess, for who ends up winning these best of 5s, but assuming that it ends with LNG first, Hanwha 2nd, Cloud9 1st, Beyond 2nd, if that happens, I do think it will be just the 4 seeds coming out, or the pool 4 team. I think it will be Hanwha, LNG, Beyond, and Cloud9. Now, if something were to happen where maybe Detonation Focus Me gets 2nd, then that's entirely up in the air, And I think Hanwha Life Esports is definitely on upset watch if they do fall into this second place. Versus where if LNG somehow drops some silly games in this group stage and they got 2nd, I'm not worried about LNG. I'm confident in LNG to beat any of the teams from Group B. But I would be more worried about Hanwha Life Esports because I think they're more exploitable, especially on the top side. And there are some teams in Group B definitely that could give Hanwha a run for their money in the right circumstances. So Hanwha Life is definitely on upset watch once we get to the best of 5s. Whoever gets 2nd seed here in Group B, I would take over whoever they're going to face from Group A. It doesn't matter if it's Unicorns or the Turkish team or Detonation Focus Me or anybody. Whoever gets 2nd in this Group B, I would definitely favor them over whoever comes out of Group A. But it is still the dream group for these teams because it'll be the best chance they're going to get, even if it's not great. But that's kind of how I see it. I still think the 4 seeds that are expected will come out, which is very important as we move to the main stage draw, where these are our teams. Now, there's a lot to talk about in these groups. I'm not sure where to start. I guess we start at Group A. Now, for these play-in teams, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be assuming that it is the four higher seeded teams that make it out, the ones I just talked about, which is LNG, Hanwha Life, Cloud9, Beyond Gaming. I'm assuming it's them for this purpose. If that changes, maybe I'll make a new video updating it and how that changes my expectations. But assuming those are the 4 teams that make it out of play-ins, that does actually tell us a lot about these groups. Because of the way the world's group system works, if you don't know, you cannot have 2 teams from the same region in the same group. And that is especially important now that LCK and LPL both have 4 teams. It means you need a Korean team and you need a Chinese team in every single group. So, assuming LNG makes it through play-ins, which they are the team I am most confident in, there's no doubt in my mind they don't make it through. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me. But assuming they make it through, they can't go in Group A because of FPX. They cannot go in Group B because of EDG. They cannot go in Group C because of RNG. So if LNG makes it through play-ins, they have to go to Group D. It's the only one they can play in. So assume Group D, this play-ins team is LNG. Now, same goes for Korea. You have to have a Korean team. So if Hanwha Life makes it through, the only group here that doesn't have a Korean team is Group C. So assume Hanwha Life is going to be in Group C. Now, since these two groups are filled, Group C and D, we only have Group A and B left. Now, because you can't have two teams from the same region in the same group, that means Cloud9 cannot go into Group B because of 100 Thieves. So that means Cloud9 has to be seeded into Group A. And if all of these groups are already taken, the only possible group left for Beyond Gaming would be Group B. So that's how that will have to settle out, if those are the four teams that make it. Now, if team upsets like Detonation Focus Me, that changes everything, and people can kind of be moved around a little bit off that. But we're going to be going with this for the sake of this video. So we'll go start with Group A. Group A is... every team at Worlds is strong, but Group A looks like the group of death to me. You've got Damwon Kia, number one LCK team. FPX, who looked like the number one LPL team for most of the season until the finals. Many people still think they're the strongest team in the world. You definitely have two of the top three teams in the world in Group A. Then you have Rogue, who was the number one team in EU for all of Summer Split until they got to playoffs and had their collapse. And you're probably going to have Cloud9, who was NA's representative at MSI and, you know, looks like definitely a solid team. Yeah. RIP C9 if that happens. Yes. Which is why this is such a tough group for C9. I think there was actually a tweet from Perks that said what he should actually do, what the strategy is Cloud9 intentionally gets third in their group, and then they win that best of 5, and then they would play Hanwha Life Esports if they got second. It's like the situation I said would happen, but instead Cloud9 gets third on purpose so they can play the best of 5 versus Hanwha, knock them out of the tournament in that best of 5, which would then allow Cloud9 to seed into Group C, where they would have a much better prospect than they would in Group A. But I don't think that's very likely. So assuming C9's in this group this is tough. When Jankos drew this one, when he drew Rogue into this group, he just started laughing. He literally made an XD face in real life. Because this is just a two-team group. It's FPX and Damwon. The gap between these two teams and anybody else in this group is going to be too big to... It's insurmountable. It's too big to overcome. If this were the group and we have C9 here, I would not be surprised if Rogue and C9 both go like 1-5. That would be an honest expectation for me. Maybe they split the games versus each other, and then they both lose every game to Damwon and FPX. The difference between Damwon and FPX in this group will definitely be if one of them does lose a game to Rogue or C9. That will drop them down to second, I would expect. I don't know if either of these teams could 2-0 the other. It's possible, but I could see a 1-1 also being very likely, in which case it would be the potential upset where you would see the difference in the seeding there. If I had to make a prediction right now, and you asked me how this group was going to finish, I would say it's going to be Damwon first, FPX second, Cloud9 third, Rogue fourth. Now, if you watch my World's tier list video, this might be a bit surprising to you, because I have FPX ranked higher than Damwon. But I do think Damwon is a better best-of-1 team than FPX. I think FPX will probably drop some games in best-of-1 because they are prone to int moments where they will just throw the entire game because Tian has a happy, fun moment as a jungler and runs it down. But that's why I would give it to Damwon, I think. I think they'll be slightly more consistent. I think FPX will show up more in best-of-5s. And I think Cloud9 could take over Rogue because I really worry for Rogue because they went from this disastrous summer playoffs performance where they got knocked out of the tournament going 0-6 in their last 6 games to 2 best of fives and they're just out 3-0 twice in a row. And then they're going into Worlds where they're drawn into the hardest, literally the hardest possible group for them. You look at any combinations of 3 teams that could be possible, this is literally Rogue's hardest group possible. And it's happening for the second year in a row. If you remember last year, Rogue also had a tough group. So I really think Rogue just might mental boom. I'm really worried about Rogue. They could 0-6 this Worlds. They could be this Worlds TSM. So that's your watch out for Rogue. Look for the 0-6 watch. If they mental boom like that, I could see that. Maybe Cloud9 ends the group 2-4 instead or something. Of course, also Rogue could 2-0 Cloud9. These 2 teams, honestly, they're just scrapping to not get last, in my opinion. That's how I see Group A turning out. Now, Group B is a similar situation. If Group A is the hardest possible combination of teams, Group B is like the second hardest. You get EDG and T1, 2 of the top 6 teams in the world, in my opinion. I have EDG third, and I think T1 was 6th on my list. And then you have 100 Thieves, NA's best team. I think 100 Thieves is screwed in this group. I think that EDG is basically a better version of 100 Thieves. They do what 100 Thieves does, but so much better. I think you look at just player by player, both of these 2 teams, their weak points are probably their top laners, Flandre and Someday, in my opinion. And I think EDG has a better player at pretty much every position than 100 Thieves. I think JJ is probably better than Closer, who we're not even sure is going to be at the tournament yet, because just like Peace's top laner was having issues, I've heard Closer is also yet to get his visa. He's not in Europe, and they might be looking for somebody to replace Closer for this tournament. So there's that to throw into the mix also. But I think Scout is better than Abadage. I think Viper is better than FBI. I think Mako is better than Huhi. So I think EDG has a better player at literally every single position. And the number one thing they like to do, which they're going to do better than 100 Thieves, is team fight. You're not going to beat EDG in a team fight scenario. So I really think 100 Thieves is screwed there. And then you look at T1, and T1 just has mechanically skilled players in every single lane, and their goal is to kind of run over you in the laning phase. And they play a lot through their top side, in fact, is kind of their play style. And Kana is one of the best top laners in the world, and right now he's sitting in a group with some relatively weak competition. So Kana is going to feast on these top laners, in my opinion, and that's going to give T1 a boost too. I think EDG and T1 are the guys that make it out. I'm not even talking about Beyond, because I think Beyond, if they get put in this group, are also in big trouble. I could see them 0-6, 1-5, something like that. If I were to predict this group, I'd probably say EDG finishes first, then T1, then 100 Thieves, and then Beyond. Not much else to say there. I think there's even, because of the way the playstyles match up, even though EDG and T1 aren't as good as Damwon and FPX maybe, there's even less of a chance for 100 Thieves or Beyond to make noise in this group, because their playstyles just match up horribly here. I don't think they're going to have a fun time. I think Group C is maybe the group of life. It's either Group C or Group D. But the problem is you put in Hanwha Life here, and these 2 groups are going to get crazy. If Group A and B are very boring, already decided, Group C and D are wide open, in my opinion. Looking at it, I think that it's so hard to predict this group, right? Assuming we get Hanwha Life in this 4th spot, I think RNG has to be your favorite to make it out in first, but then that 2nd slot is really up for grabs between PSG, Fnatic, and HLE. If I had to guess, I would say HLE is the worst team in this group, if this group were to happen. In my opinion, it's RNG first, HLE 4th, and Fnatic versus PSG for the 2nd spot is going to be the matchup to watch. That is what I think would happen here. And it's so hard to see who I would favor here. Like, between PSG and Fnatic, it's just a coin flip to me between these 2. If I had to pick, I would give Fnatic the edge, like 55-45 over PSG. But I think a lot of it comes down to how do Adam and Bwipo look at the tournament. I'm pretty confident in Niski, Upset, Hillisang. I think they're going to be pretty solid, but I'm worried how Adam and Bwipo are going to do. If Adam and Bwipo perform well, then I think Fnatic can easily get second in this group. If they don't have a great tournament, then PSG, Hanabi could maybe help make the difference and push them over the top. But we will have to see. It's really hard. I don't see any way that RNG doesn't finish first in this group. They're just too much better than the other teams here, in my opinion. Group D. Now this is kind of like a group of life for TL. If Cloud9 and 100 Thieves are both sacrificed to the seeding gods, just as Rogue was, then I think Mad and TL in Group D are very happy with what they ended up getting, relatively. So you assume the last team in this group is LNG. And this group, I think anybody can make it out. I really do. I really think anybody can make it out. I've seen some people say 4 Chinese teams are going to make it out. And I think if there's any Chinese team that you're worried about not making it, it's going to be LNG in this group. I think LNG's their strength, as I've said, is Ale and Tarzan. That's their strong point. But I don't think that Ale is strong enough where he is going to individually get laning leads on Alphari or Armut. Rascal, I can see. I think Rascal is by far the weakest top laner in this group. And that might come out to hurt Genji. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe top lane in the new meta, the world's meta, will be not as important. And then Rascal's weakness might not be so emphasized. But if it's like Jace, Fiora type meta, I don't see how Rascal is going to compete. And I don't see how he's going to keep up. I think Alphari and Armut are strong enough individually that they won't get run over by Ale. And if their top laners aren't getting run over by Ale, I think it's hard for LNG to win games. I think you could argue TL and Mad are stronger rosters top to bottom than LNG. But I think LNG probably have the best player in this group in Tarzan. So it's hard to count them out also. But if I had to guess, this is my hot take. This is going to be my hot take for this video. Everything else so far has been relatively normal, very conservative. But in Group D, my honest prediction for how I see these teams shaking out, I see Mad Lions in first, Team Liquid in second, Genji third, and LNG fourth. That's what I think. That's my prediction. And if I'm totally wrong and NA gets memed again, 0-6 bombs out, that's fine. You can meme on me. But just looking at how the teams stack up against each other right now in this hypothetical where these 4 teams make it through play-ins, I think TL has a shot. Because I think I think every top laner in this group has the ability to take advantage of Rascal. And I think they could all get advantages and leads there. The only reason I don't put Genji in fourth, besides LNG, is I think the rest of Genji's roster is probably stronger on paper than LNG. I do not personally rate, Icon, Light, and Iwandi that highly. I think they're okay role players, but I think TL and Mad and Genji all have stronger lineups across the board. And I think Genji's stronger lineup across the board might be able to help offset the difference in Ale and Tarzan in the top jungle. And between Genji and TL, I think that TL has a stronger roster on paper. But a lot of that comes down to Alphari being better than Rascal. Because I think Ruler is definitely performing better than Tactical. That's pretty undeniable. I think BDD's probably performed better than Jensen. I think Life and Core JJ is kind of a wash. And I think Clid Santorin is kind of a wash. But the argument would be that Alphari is like an 8 or 9 out of 10 player and Rascal's like 4 out of 10. versus the difference between BDD and Jensen being only a point or two, and same for Ruler and Tactical. So then Alfari's difference would make up theirs. But that's all very hypothetical, theoretical also. And we'll have to see how the teams actually play out and match up head to head. I think Genji could be in trouble because they play a very slower paced game, and that's going to get them killed against Mad Lions and LNG, I think, to a degree. So Genji finishing fourth in this group is definitely not out of the question in my eyes. I could definitely see that happening. I really think this group is going to come down to whichever team plays slower is going to be the one that loses more games. This group is all going to be about who's more proactive. And if TL, Genji can't adapt to that, then it might just be LNG and Mad who run over them in 20 minutes and then they make it out. But I will confirm, my prediction will be Mad and TL. This will be the first time an NA team makes it out of groups since 2018, I believe. That's what I'm predicting. One NA team will make it out, and it will be TL. That is my hot take for this video. I'll put that in the title to grab all the eyes. But that is how I see the world's group draw shaking out right now. Like I said, if the play-ins end up shaking out differently and different teams make it out, I'll do a new video when we get the official teams. If it shakes out exactly how I planned, I probably won't make a new video because I think this will be good enough. But other than that, you can follow me on Twitch. The link will be right down below where I'm streaming this right now. So you can get content earlier live and also see when I'm playing other games. I play League all the time. Yes, in the chat, top players win. Top players list are still being worked on. Fell a little bit behind on them. Top 10 top laners should be coming out sometime in the next couple days. And then I'll go through each role and then have a top 20 worlds list that will drop before the games start. It's on its way. If you want to keep up on updates on that, see how that's coming along, see what my lists look like, everything like that, you can also join me in my Discord down below. I talk about League all the time. You want to argue with me about why I completely looked at this group wrong or underrated this play-in team, that's where you can find me and argue with me about it. I'll be happy to chat with you. And then you can also follow me on Twitter for updates when I'm going live, when new videos come out, and I tweet about League of Legends and stuff all the time, along with my school stuff and whatever. But that's all my plugs, all my shout-outs. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, see my opinions on how I see the action shaking out after this group draw. I think overall, Europe is feeling pretty good about their chances, sacrificed Rogue to get good group draws for their other teams. NA, the hope of NA all rests on TL. The other two teams don't have much of a chance. It's pretty much entirely TL is the hope of NA, carrying the torch. Korea, it's a mixed bag. I think the bottom two Korean teams, Genji and HLE, have a chance, and T1 and Damwon feel pretty safe and secure. And I think China has definite potential to get all four of their teams out of groups, which if they did, would be an immense statement to the strength of the LPL. If 4 of the top 8 teams in the world come from the LPL, that's going to be hugely important for Riot seeding at tournaments going into the future, I think. We could even, if that happens and all 4 LPL teams make it to quarters and 3 out of 4 or something, say, make it to semis, you could be seeing a world where there are 5 or more LPL teams at international tournaments. It would be incredible. I'm not sure if it's the most likely, but I will say there is a decent shot, over 25% chance in my mind, I could say, maybe to peg it, that all 4 LPL teams make it out. So that's kind of where I see each of the region's strength. Just an overall quick rundown. But if you have any suggestions for other types of content or video you'd like to see, drop that down below. I'd love to read that and see that too. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.